Hello everyone and welcome to day 60 of the 1000 days of Nocode challenge. Okay, let's start with something that we all are familiar with. We've all seen live weather updates, stock market price updates, or live delivery tracking. But have you ever wondered how do they manage to show the live updates on the application? Is there a team entering this data manually every second? Well, that's not the case. That's where API comes in. APIs or application programming interface are like digital bridges which connects your app to third-party service. It could be Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, or any such applications, which allows you to connect your application with their application to get some data or send some data. A very simple example could be you receiving some WhatsApp updates when you book a ticket, right? And this is happening via WhatsApp API. So WhatsApp has enabled you to use their application to send updates on WhatsApp numbers. And these applications would have integrated with WhatsApp using APIs. In today's video, we will dive into the basics of API, what they are, how do we use them on Bubble, and couple of very basic API calls so that we understand what APIs are and how to use it before we get into the complex stuff. So let's dive in. So to work with APIs, you have to go to plugins and click on add plugins. And the most widely used plugin in the Bubble marketplace is API connector. That's because almost every application requires one or other API connection. But I'm not sure why Bubble has still kept it as a plugin. Anyways, so we install it from here. And then you see API connector in the Bubble plugin. Just so that you understand the APIs well and you have a support system from the beginning. Since most of you are coming from non-coding background, API documentation might be a bit overwhelming. And that's why I want to introduce you to a system which can help you wherever you are getting stuck in the API journey. And a lot of you are already familiar with that, and that's ChatGPT. Okay, so let me bring in that. I'll show you how it is helpful and how can we use it. So I'll ask ChatGPT to share with me a couple of APIs that we will be trying out, right? So once I ask this to ChatGPT, it will give us some reference for the APIs to try out with. So the first one is Jokes API, and you can see that the endpoint is nothing but URL. Now let me give you some context. If you want to make a phone call to your friend, then you need to have your friend's phone number. Likewise, if you want to make an API call, then you need to have the endpoint URL. And the endpoint is basically the URL you are going to make a call for, right? And in this case, if we see, it is this URL that we need to call. Now, firstly, let me show you that in this particular case, which is a very simple API call, if you take that URL and paste it over here, okay, this will also give you a result, right? You can see that type is general, setup. How many lips does a flower have? Punchline, 2 lips, right? So now let's see how do we implement this on Bubble. I'm going back and click on this add another API, right? So there are two things here. One is the API name, which will be the parent name, and then what is the API call, right? So here I'll give this as test, and here I'll expand this and put the URL that we have copied from ChatGPT. I'll name this as joke, right? Or we could make it as random joke. Now, all we have to do is click on this initialize call, and you can see that the response has come back, right? So the response has the same parameters that we have got here, okay? Like we have type, we have setup, we have punchline, we have ID. So this particular URL, okay, which is basically coming from official joke API.appspot.com, right? This particular URL, which is basically coming from appspot.com, is an API that they have enabled, and they tell whenever you hit this particular URL, we will respond back with a random joke, right? So if you go back to this one, you can see that the joke will be very different this time, right? If I click on show raw data, this is the JSON format that we get. Most of the API's response will be in JSON format, right? And what is JSON? JSON is nothing but a data structure where it starts with flower bases and ends with flower bases. And each of the parameters within will have key value pair, right? So you can see here, type is a key, general is a value, setup is key, and why did the chicken get a penalty is the value. Okay, punchline for foul play, right? So punchline is key and for foul play is value. ID is key and 318 is the value. Okay, so combination of key value pairs separated by comma, right? Each of the key value pair is separated by comma is a JSON, right? So this is how a very simple API call can be made on Bubble. Now to show you how this can be added on the front end, let's go to a new page, API calls, create. I'll add a group here. I'll go to the page and make this as column. Let's go to this group and call this as joke. And I'll add a text element here. Okay. And the way we get this particular API to be called on the front end is inside dynamic data. You have something called get data from an external API. Select that. This will open up and we have just one API, which is test random joke, right? Test is coming from the top where we are given the name here, API name, and this is the name of the API call, right? Both together will be the name that we get here, right? Test random joke. Now we'll have to select what is that we want to show, right? In this case, we will select setup and check how this works. So I'm going to preview this. You can see that how does the moon cut his hair? Now, this joke is not sufficient for us to understand the joke unless and until we use the punchline, right? So what we will do is we will go to the group and we will change this to random joke. Now, because we have added the API connector, we also have type of content in the name of the API that we have given. Right? So we have the option set, which we have seen, data types we have, basic types we have, and then we have plugin types. These are the names that we have given in the API connector. Now I'll do this and then I'll go to get data from an external API, right? And here I'll put test random joke. Okay, now this will be the data which will be linked to the group. Now this is the text element that we have added. So I'll clear this, we'll come back, insert dynamic data, parent groups random joke, setup, right? That's not sufficient. So we will copy this text element, add it again, and this time we will add the punchline, right? Initially, I showed you how you can connect the API call to the text element. Now I want to show you how we connected that to the group. And then how do we get the details from that particular API call on the front end with different parameters, right? Now let's go to the front end, refresh this. You can check, why did the programmer bring a ladder to work? They heard the code needed to be debugged from a higher level, right? So if you refresh this, you will get another joke. Did you know the first French fries weren't cooked in France? They were cooked in Greece. I just got fired from my job at the keyboard factory. They told me I wasn't putting in enough shifts. Now, this is one way of doing this. Similarly, I'll copy the group itself, right? I'll paste it here. Now, in this case, data source, I'll leave it as blank, okay? And I'll go back to the plugins. Okay, we have this random joke. You can see here, use as data. And we also have something called use as action. So for this, I will duplicate this, right? And we have random joke copy. I'll expand I'll make this as action and use as action. Okay. I'll reinitialize the call here. The response over here will be just same. Okay. But on the front end, okay, I would like to change this one. If we scroll down, we can see this random joke here. But let me refresh it. Because we made a copy, it has remained the same, that is random joke. But we have changed the name of it, that is random joke action, and we need to be able to see that as a name on the front end. So we'll change the name of this particular group also to action. And if we go to type of content, we can see that random joke action has come in, right? Now, I'll add a button to this one, okay, on the top, and we can name this as get random joke, right? Click on add workflow, and because we have changed the API to an action, you will be able to call this only from here, right? So search for joke and you will get this test random joke action, okay? And the way we will send the data to that particular group is elements action, display data in group, right? The group is random joke action. The group is group joke action, and data to display is result of step 1. Okay. You can see that when we search for joke, we didn't have the other one here. And when we go back to this particular group and search for the API provider, you cannot see the random joke action. Okay. When you make it as data, it can be used only from the front end, like we saw in the first case. And when you make it as action, you can only use it from the workflows. So you'll have to set the APIs accordingly so that you can use it as needed. So let's go here and check if this is already working fine, right? So I've added this particular thing here, which is parent groups random joke action setup, and this will be the punchline. So let's go to the front end and click on this particular button. So you can see, what do you get when you cross a chicken with a shrunk? A false map. Let me click on this again. We'll get a different example this time. Where's the bin? I haven't been anywhere. I hope the fundamentals of API is clear. Now I would ask you to explore this particular API, which is https://catfact.ninja/fact, right? So I'll copy this URL, paste it over here, and you can see that we have got something here, right? And the fact is, cats are now Britain's favorite pet. There are 7.7 million cats as opposed to 6.6 million dogs, right? I'm just showing you over here, but I would like you to practice this on the Bubble API. And those are some basic APIs that you can start with. APIs are so vast and powerful. What we have seen today is just the tip of it. In the upcoming videos, we will take some advanced APIs so that we understand the power of API and to use it in the best possible manner for our application. Think of this video as laying the foundation for what's coming next. So go ahead and try this basic APIs. This is the best way to get comfortable with how APIs work and how do we use them on Bubble. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.